Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so pumped to have you with us because we're about to unpack something literally game-changing. If you're into figuring out how systems work or how a fresh look at data can totally rewire how we think about doing good, well, you're in the right place. Today, we're looking under the hood of AmpleHarvest.org. We're going to walk through a rigorously built 20-year return on investment model that is going to completely change how you view scale and impact. Trust me on this one. So let me ask you a really fundamental question. What is the true lifespan of a single donated dollar? Normally, we think of charity as a straight line, right? You give a buck, that buck buys a service or some food, and then it's gone. Poof, transaction over. But what if we could bend that straight line? What if we turned it into an upward compounding curve where a dollar doesn't just last a few days, but actually keeps working for decades? Okay, let's dive into this. Traditionally, charity operates exactly like this. You spend a dollar, you buy a pound of food, it feeds someone once. Which, don't get me wrong, is absolutely vital. But the financial energy completely stops there. The AmpleHarvest.org model flips the script. Instead of buying food, they spend that dollar to create a connection. They link a local gardener who already has surplus food with a nearby food pantry. So it's a shift from just purchasing a one-off commodity to building actual lasting infrastructure. There's a quote from our source material that just hits the nail on the head. The dollar is spent once, the connection can keep producing fresh food donations year after year, and connected gardeners can bring more gardeners into the network. It's such a powerful mindset shift. You aren't funding a single meal, you're sparking a local supply chain that literally sustains itself. It's kind of like investing your money in a high-yield compounding asset, rather than just stuffing cash under your mattress. So, how does the self-sustaining engine actually run? Well, it breaks down into 4 really logical steps. Step 1 is reach. AmpleHarvest.org uses their funding to find and activate gardeners. Step 2 is donate. A portion of those gardeners take their extra harvest and share it locally. But here's the real magic. Step 3 is repeat. Those same active gardeners, they grow food again next year and they donate again, costing the charity exactly $0 in new acquisition costs. And finally, step 4 is multiply. These happy, engaged gardeners tell their friends, pulling new people into the network. The whole system expands, and not a single penny was spent buying actual food. So, the crucial point is, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea drawn on a whiteboard. This engine is backed by serious, hard data. But to really wrap our heads around the exponential impact we're going to see, we first need to know where these foundational numbers came from, right? And we need to be crystal clear about the division of labor here. AmpleHarvest.org are the ones who conducted the on-the-ground foundational surveys of the gardeners to get the raw data. But, and this is key, they didn't grade their own homework. A completely independent team from the Harvard Business School Alumni Association took that raw survey data and used it to perform the rigorous return on investment calculations. It's an absolutely brilliant pairing of frontline data gathering and top-tier financial modeling. Let's look at the raw evidence AmpleHarvest.org actually brought to the table from their 2014 survey. Out of 666 gardeners they talked to, a staggering 49.4% were not just willing but actively able to donate their surplus. And get this, how much surplus are we talking about? Those gardeners averaged about 277 pounds of extra produce every single year. Just picture that, nearly 300 pounds of fresh, healthy food just sitting in a backyard waiting to be connected to a local pantry. Okay, so the Harvard Business School Alumni Association team took that, and they layered in their model assumptions, updated for 2026. Think of this as the recipe for their model. They factored in a $35 cost to acquire and inform a new gardener. They assumed 40% of those willing gardeners would activate. They built in a 10% annual attrition rate, but balanced that with a 50% referral rate from the ones who stick around. They went with a conservative estimate of 270 pounds donated per active gardener. Using 2026 USDA data, they valued that fresh produce at $2.53 a pound. And, like any solid financial model, they applied a 4% discount rate to express future value in today's dollars. And the sheer scale of this potential, it's massive and it's growing. When the original model was built, the universe of U.S. gardeners was estimated at about 42 million people. But fast forward to 2026, and that number has surged to 62 million. That is a 47.6% jump in market headroom. We're talking millions more people out there with dirt on their hands and surplus on their vines, totally primed to be activated by this exact model. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it brings it all together. We've looked at the behavior, the math, the scale, so let's get to the grand finale. Let's track exactly what happens to the value of a donated dollar when a recurring annual donation is made over a 20-year period. Watch what happens to this curve. Right out of the gate in year one, the model shows a 5.2 to 1 ratio, meaning for every single dollar donated, $5.21 of modeled fresh produce value is generated for the community. I mean, honestly, even without any compounding, getting more than quintuple your return in a single year is a massive win by any standard. But remember, the whole point of the AmpleHarvest.org model is that it doesn't stop there. Fast forward to year 5, and you can really see the momentum building. Because of those repeat and multiply steps we talked about, gardeners coming back season after season and telling their friends, the cumulative modeled value jumps to 46.2 to 1. That original dollar, fueled by recurring giving, has now facilitated over $46 worth of fresh food. But year 10, the math goes totally exponential. We cross the 200 threshold. The model projects a 213.6 to 1 ratio. That is $213.63 of cumulative fresh produce value for every single dollar donated. The retention of those engaged gardeners and the steady flow of new referrals are just completely blowing past the initial acquisition costs. And here is the absolute climax of the Harvard Business School Alumni Association model. Brace yourself. By year 20, the cumulative value ratio explodes to 2,246.9 to 1. Just let that sink in for a second. Because of the power of recurring donations and a self-replicating network of connected gardeners, the model suggests that over 2 decades, one single donated dollar can generate over $2,246 in community value. It is just a stunning testament to what happens when you build infrastructure instead of just buying commodities. And this brilliantly illustrates what those crazy abstract ratios actually look like in the real world. Let's take the workbook's example of a $60,000 per year donation. Over 20 years, that's $1.2 million in total donations, right? But look at the modeled impact. That $1.2 million enables an estimated 541.7 million pounds of donated produce. That translates to 2.17 billion servings of fresh food for people in need. And in 2026 retail terms, that's a present value of $2.7 billion. From 1.2 million in to 2.7 billion out. If that's not the ultimate definition of leverage, I don't know what is. Now, to be totally thorough, the model also compares a one-time gift to a recurring one. If you make a one-time acquisition gift and we account for ongoing retention costs, the value still rises to a really impressive 160.3 to 1 by year 20. Phenomenal return, for sure. But when you compare that to the 2,246.9 to 1 ratio of a recurring annual gift, it becomes incredibly clear that consistent, ongoing support is the real fuel for that massive exponential growth curve. Now, as your objective explainer host, it's absolutely vital I give you the context and the disclaimers provided in our source material. This is a financial model of long-term potential. It's not a historical guarantee or a backward-looking receipt, okay? That massive 20-year multiplier exists because of the assumed repeated annual donations and those modeled referrals. So the ultimate reality of these staggering numbers relies heavily on those assumptions: retention, referral, activation, and crop yields, continuing to hold true over those 2 decades. Which brings us to our final thought. We've seen how AmpleHarvest.org conducted the groundwork surveys, and how the Harvard Business School Alumni Association calculated an explosive growth model reaching over 2,000 to 1. So, I'll leave you with this to ponder. If a single connection between a gardener and a pantry yields decades of harvest, how should we value the dollars we donate today? It absolutely makes you rethink what's possible when we prioritize lasting connections over temporary transactions. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep asking the big questions.